Welcome and thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode until we'll open up for question and answer. Today's call is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I will now introduce your conference host, Mohammed Samemra. You may begin.
Thank you. Hello everyone, this is Mohammed Samemra and I'm here with Michael Ridman. We're going to talk about PSAP, or the 2020 Participant Statistical Areas Program PSAP. The Participant Statistical Areas Program PSAP occurs every 10 years in preparation for the decennial census. The PSAP is an opportunity for tribal, state, local governments to review, modify, and suggest changes to the boundaries and names of statistical geographic areas such as tribal statistical areas, tracts, block groups, census-designated places, and census county divisions based on U.S. Census Bureau criteria and guidelines. In new for the 2020 PSAP, the Census Bureau integrated the Tribal Statistical Areas program that covered the tribal geographies into 2010 into the PSAP. Second, the Census Bureau developed a new PSAP review and update software called the Geographic Update Partnership Software GUPS. GUPS runs within QGIS, which is an open source GIS free for our participants to use. GUPS offers the PSAP participants specific tools to facilitate their review of PSAP boundaries. This presentation will cover all of the aforementioned changes for 2020 and a short demonstration of using GUPS to review, update, validate, and prepare a submission for delivery to the Census Bureau. Mike will cover the first section of PSAP criteria and guidelines, and I will do the demonstration using GUPS. Thank you, and Mike, you can start.
Thank you, Mohammed, for the introduction. Hello. Welcome to the Participant Statistical Area Program Tribal webinar. Over the next 2 hours, we will be discussing your participation in the 2020 Participant Statistical Area Program, or PSAP. The first thing to note is that for the 2020 census, we've combined the former Tribal Statistical Areas Program, or TSAP, with PSAP. The two are now a single program. In this presentation, we'll discuss the details specific to tribal PSAP participants who will be reviewing and updating tribal statistical geographies. This presentation will provide you with an overview of the PSAP program, the PSAP schedule, materials for your PSAP submissions, and an overview of tribal statistical geography. It also provides an introduction to the Geographic Update Partnership Software, or GUPS, a technical demonstration of GUPS, an overview of the Secure Web Incoming Module, or SWIM, and information on assistance that is available to you for your PSAP submission. PSAP is a once-a-decade program which provides designated participants the opportunity to review and suggest changes to the boundaries and names for statistical geographic areas based on U.S. Census Bureau criteria and guidelines. The Census Bureau uses these statistical geographies to tabulate and disseminate data for the decennial census and the American Community Survey, or ACS. With the 2020 census rapidly approaching, PSAP gives participants the opportunity to review and update their statistical geographies, which in turn allows the Census Bureau to provide the best statistics for those areas. PSAP allows the Census Bureau to provide statistics for tribal and local governments and data users who often need data for planning by smaller statistical geographic areas. Census Bureau statistical areas are a shared resource that are most relevant when they reflect the needs of a variety of tribal data users. The official primary participant is responsible for coordinating review and update of statistical area boundaries and then returning those updates to the Census Bureau. They're also responsible for engaging with and including other tribal stakeholders and tribal data users in the review process. So how would you engage these stakeholders? Notify stakeholders about the start of PSAP and request input. You can also organize meetings to discuss analytical needs and solicit changes. Ensuring that the areas submitted to the Census Bureau meet the needs of a variety of tribal data users in the tribal area. The PSAP delineation phase begins in January 2019 with the delivery of delineation materials. Participants have a maximum of 120 days from receipt of materials to complete and submit any statistical geography updates to the Census Bureau. The closeout of the delineation phase begins in the summer of 2019 and includes preparation of materials to send to participants in time for the verification phase, which begins in January 2020. Participants have 90 days to verify that the final boundaries of the PSAP geographies are correct. A final closeout occurs after the conclusion of the verification phase. All tabulation geographies for the 2020 census are finalized in October 2020. An important item enclosed with the delineation materials is the delineation phase postcard. After comparing the standard statistical geographies and determining the update status of the materials, please complete the postcard indicating whether changes are forthcoming. The return of this postcard assists the Census Bureau with planning for incoming submissions and identifying participants that will not be providing updates. The Census Bureau requests the return of this postcard within a month of receipt of the delineation phase materials. If you discover changes are necessary to your PSAP materials after the delineation postcard, please contact the Census Bureau PSAP staff by email at geo.psap@census.gov or by phone at 1-844-788-4921 to let them know that a submission is forthcoming. And we will show this contact information again at the end of the presentation. The Census Bureau provides specialized materials for conducting PSAP work. To support your review and update of your statistical geographies for the 2020 census, the Census Bureau created quick reference and quick program guides that summarize each standard statistical geography and digital delivery methods. The Census Bureau provides all informational and instructional materials in digital format. The digitally formatted materials are located on the PSAP website, as well as the data disk provided to participants that requested DVDs during the invitation phase of the 2020 Census PSAP. The table you see here is located in the respondent guide. It lists each piece of informational and instructional materials distributed by the Census Bureau and identifies the participants that will be receiving those materials. The Census Bureau generates large format 36 by 32 inch paper maps for use by tribal entities in the 2020 Census PSAP. The types of paper maps vary depending on the size and mapping complexity of each tribal entity. Tribal entities with small land area may only receive a single large format map sheet, while those with large area may receive an index map, a series of parent maps, and a series of inset maps. It is best practice to retain the delineation materials shipment packaging for use in returning the updated materials. There are three types of large format maps: index, parent, and inset. An index map covers the complete geographic extent of the tribal participants' legally or statistically defined area divided into numbered grids. These grids correspond to an area covered by a parent map. Index maps exist for tribal participants with more than one parent sheet and are for reference purposes only. A parent map shows a detailed version of section for each of the grids from the index map. They show detail for features and the statistical geographies. Inset maps do not exist for every tribal participant. They show the finer details of areas within the parent map where the feature network is too dense to represent clearly at the map scale of the parent map. Think of the inset map as a blow-up of a specific area. Make the map updates to the parent or inset sheets, not the index sheet. The large format maps contain information within the map border, including the map title, corner sheet coordinates, disclaimer information, data source information, projection information, the number of total sheets, tribal entity information, the key to adjacent areas, a barcode, a scale, a north arrow, and the legend. The goal of PSAP is to produce meaningful statistical geographies for data users while maintaining consistent statistical geography nationwide. The Census Bureau classifies two types of geographies: legal and statistical geography. Statistical geographies are areas defined solely for data collection, tabulation, dissemination, and analysis. Some statistical geographies represent areas that do not have legally defined boundaries or are surrogates for legal entities. For example, Alaska Native Village statistical areas are statistical surrogates for the legal Alaska Native Villages. Other statistical geographies are representations of entities that have or had a legal existence but may lack clear boundaries or may not fit within an agency's definition of legal entities. For example, Oklahoma tribal statistical areas represent the former reservations that existed prior to Oklahoma statehood. This image illustrates how PSAP geographies relate to one another and to other geographies. For example, tribal census tracts subdivide or nest within federally recognized American Indian reservations. Tribal block groups nest within tribal census tracts. Tribal subdivisions located left of center exist within American Indian reservations as well as Oklahoma tribal statistical areas. But notice that there is not a direct relationship with tribal census tracts and tribal block groups. In the next series of slides, we will give in-depth overviews of different types of geographies in PSAP. Geographies updated by GUPS or paper are tribal census tracts, tribal block groups, or census designated places, or CDPs. Geographies updated by paper only are Alaska Native Village statistical areas, Oklahoma tribal statistical areas, and Oklahoma tribal statistical areas, tribal subdivisions, tribal designated statistical areas, or TDSAs, state designated tribal statistical areas, and Alaska Native Regional Corporations and State American Indian Reservations. Census Bureau data disseminated by the tribal geographies help tribal leaders and decision makers understand what their communities need. Many tribal communities use census information to attract new businesses, plan for growth, plan new facilities, and develop new programs for the communities that they serve. My tribal area gives you a quick and easy access to selected statistics from the American Community Survey. The American Community Survey provides detailed demographic, social, economic, and housing statistics for every year for the nation's communities. My tribal area is a great resource and can be accessed at www.census.gov/tribal. Over the next series of slides, we will give an overview of tribal census tracts, tribal block groups, and census-designated places. We will also discuss the criteria for each geography type as well as population thresholds. Statistical geography boundaries generally follow permanent, visible features that are identifiable in the field. Boundaries should follow visible features whenever possible. Boundaries should use significant or major features on landscape, align to legal geography where a relationship has been established, follow legal conjoint boundaries where applicable, and they should reflect current land use patterns where possible. Boundaries should not cut through housing and other buildings, include zigzags and sharp angles for no purpose, group disparate land use types for no reason, or make use of less prominent features when a more significant feature could be used. Tribal census tracts are relatively permanent statistical subdivisions of American Indian reservations and off-reservation trust lands defined for tabulation and presentation of statistical data. They are conceptually similar and equivalent to census tracts defined with the standard state-county tract geographic hierarchy used for tabulating and publishing statistical data. The Census Bureau defines tribal census tracts with tribal officials to provide meaningful, relevant, and reliable data for small geographic areas. As such, they recognize the unique statistical data needs of federally recognized American Indian tribes. The delineation of tribal census tracts allows for the unambiguous presentation of census tract level data specific to the federally recognized American Indian reservation or off-reservation trust land without the imposition of state or county boundaries, which might artificially separate American Indian populations located within a single American Indian reservation or off-reservation trust land. To this end, the tribal participants may define tribal census tracts that cross county or state boundaries, or both. The following criteria apply to reviewing, updating, and delineating 2020 tribal census tracts. Tribal census tracts must cover the entire land or water area of the American Indian Reservation or off-reservation trust land. They must cross county or state boundaries. They may cross county or state boundaries, They must not cross American Indian Reservation or off-reservation trust land boundaries. They must meet specified population and housing unit thresholds as outlined in the respondent guide. They must comprise a reasonable, compact, and contiguous land area. Naming convention must utilize the letter T in a 3-digit code and may have a 2-digit suffix. Tribal census tracts should also follow visible and identifiable features. Tribal census tracts must meet population or housing unit thresholds as outlined in this slide. This helps to ensure a minimal level of reliability in sample data as well as availability of data when data disclosure avoidance methodologies are applied. PSAP participants should aim to create tribal census tracts that meet the optimal population of 4,000 or 1,600 housing units and maintain the minimum thresholds with an American Indian Reservation or off-reservation trust land with fewer than 1,200 people. Excuse me. The Census Bureau uses a housing unit criterion to accommodate seasonably occupied areas in which the decennial census population count with a reference date of April 1st and may be lower than populations at other times of the year. A tribal census tract that exceeds the maximum threshold should be split into multiple tracts. Those that drop below a minimum threshold should be merged with adjacent tribal census tracts. If a participant chooses not to split or merge a tribal census tract that do not meet approved thresholds, they must provide justification for retaining the existing geography. This helps the Census Bureau with the review of submitted geographies as well as answering questions from data users who are familiar with the 4,000 person optimum population. GUPS allows, the Geographic Update Partnership Software, or GUPS, allows participants to add remarks or justifications to statistical geographies that are not changed in the event that population growth or decline is anticipated. Participants should use the 2010 Census Population and Housing Counts for tribal census tract review in most cases. The housing unit threshold uses the national average of 2.5 persons per household. Because of local and regional variations to this average, the Census Bureau will consider variation while reviewing all tribal census tract revisions. Tribal block groups are statistical subdivisions of tribal census tracts defined for the tabulation and presentation of statistical data. The Census Bureau defines tribal block groups in cooperation with tribal officials to provide meaningful, relevant, and reliable data for small geographic areas within the boundaries of federally recognized American Indian reservations and off-reservation trust lands. As such, they recognize the unique statistical data needs of federally recognized American Indian tribes. The delineation of tribal block groups allows for an unambiguous presentation of statistical data specific to the federally recognized American Indian Reservation or off-reservation trust land without the imposition of state or county boundaries which might artificially separate American Indian populations located within a single reservation or off-reservation trust land. To this end, the American Indian tribal participant may define tribal block groups that cross county or state boundaries or both. For federally recognized American Indian tribes with American Indian reservations or off-reservation trust lands that have fewer than 1,200 residents, the Census Bureau defines one tribal census tract and one tribal block group coextensive with the reservation or off-reservation trust land. Tribal block groups submitted to the Census Bureau are subject to review to ensure compliance with the published criteria. Detailed criteria pertaining to tribal block groups exists in a separate Federal Register notice pertaining to all American Indian areas, including statistical areas defined through PSAP. The Federal the Federal Register notices for both standard and tribal geographies are available on the PSAP website. The following criteria and guidelines apply for use in reviewing, updating, and delineating 2020 tribal block groups. Tribal block groups must cover the entire land and water area of the tribal census tract. Must utilize capital letters A through K with exception of the letter I, and must be unique within the tribal census tracts. More guidance on this can be found in the respondent guide. Tribal block groups must meet specific population and housing unit thresholds, must comprise a reasonably compact and contiguous land area, and would only be non-contiguous in situations where the tribal land is non-contiguous. They should follow visible and identifiable features and must not cross tribal census tract boundaries. Tribal block groups must meet certain population and housing unit thresholds. This helps to ensure a minimum level of reliability in sample data, as well as availability of data when disclosure avoidance methodologies are applied. Like census tracts, the Census Bureau uses housing unit criterion to accommodate seasonably occupied areas that may have higher populations at times of the year other than on Census Day, April 1st. A tribal block group that exceeds maximum thresholds should be split. Those that drop below the minimum threshold should be merged with an adjacent tribal block group. If a participant chooses not to change threshold errant tribal block groups, they must provide justification for their retention. Again, this helps the Census Bureau with review of submitted geographies as well as answering questions from data users who are familiar with the block group population thresholds. Tribal block groups may be completely redefined to meet population or housing unit thresholds. However, in doing so, please consider the impact on analysis of tribal block group level data across time. In most cases, participants should use the 2010 census population counts for tribal block group review. Locally produced population and housing unit estimates are permissible when reviewing and updating areas experiencing considerable growth since the 2010 census. The housing unit thresholds use the national average of 2.5 persons per household. Because of local and regional variations to this average, the Census Bureau will consider variation while reviewing all tribal block group revisions. Census-designated places, or CDPs, are statistical geographic entities representing closely settled, unincorporated communities that are locally recognizable and identified by name. They are the statistical equivalents of incorporated places, with the primary differences being the lack of both a legally defined boundary and an active functioning governmental structure chartered by the state and administered by elected officials. A CDP cannot be coextensive with an entire American Indian Reservation or off-reservation trust land or any other American Indian area. Boundaries may extend beyond the boundaries of American Indian reservations and or off-reservation trust lands. CDPs must constitute a single named closely settled concentration of population, must generally consist of a single piece of territory with a mixed residual, commercial, and other uses similar to that of an incorporated place of a similar size. Boundaries should follow visible features, except in circumstances where the boundary is coincident with the non-visible boundary of a state, county, minor civil division, or incorporated place. Boundaries may follow other non-visible features in instances where reliance upon visible features would result in overbounding of the CDP in order to include housing units on both sides of a road or a street feature. Names should be recognizable and used in daily communication by the residents of the community it represents. A CDP cannot have the same name as an adjacent or nearby incorporated place. The CDP should be based on a locally known feature or landmark. For example, signs indicating when one is entering the community, highway exit signs that use the name, or businesses, schools, or other buildings that make use of the name. CDPs may cross county boundaries, but must not cross state boundaries. CDPs cannot be located partially or entirely within an incorporated place or another CDP. Excuse me. There is no minimum population or housing unit threshold, but CDPs must contain some population, housing units, or both. This map shows the distribution of incorporated places in purple and CDPs in green. We can see, for example, a cluster of CDPs defined by the Cherokee Nation in the Northeast. We can also see a cluster of CDPs in the Navajo Nation. And if we look closely, a cluster of CDPs on the Pine Ridge and Rosebud reservations in southwestern South Dakota. The Geographic Update Partnership Software, or GUPS, is the tool for PSAP response. It allows participants to review and modify the statistical geographies in a more efficient manner than in previous decades. GUPS integrates the standardized PSAP requirements and thresholds that define statistical geographies to eliminate guesswork for the participants. GUPS runs in both a desktop, PC, and network environment. It runs in QGIS, an open-source geographic information system, and contains all functionality required to make updates, execute automated checks for program criteria compliance, and create standardized data output files for the Census Bureau processing. Many of the menus and functionalities in QGIS are not applicable to GUPS. For more information on QGIS, please visit www.qgis.org. GUPS is available on DVD or by download from the Census website. I'm now going to hand things over to Mohammed for the technical demonstration portion of this webinar. Mohammed?
Thank you, Mike. Just before I move on into GUPS, I'd just like to share a couple of the tools that you might feel like they are useful for your during your PSAP or processing the census boundaries, census tracts boundary, block groups, and you can use the Tiger Web as a reference to display your 2010 geographies. Another tool and another resource where you can locate and download the GUPS is the PSAP webpage, home page. If you locate that page, and almost in the middle of the PSAP homepage, you will find the download the GUPS, or download the GUPS for your use. You can locate the guide for your tribal and to locate the criteria in there. Please use the guide, because a lot of step-by-step operations are listed in there. So please make sure you verify and you use that for your verification and answer some of your questions. SWIM. All of the participants will receive a SWIM token, and the SWIM token will be in your cover letter in maybe the 5th line, or listed in the 5th line of your cover letter. You can create an account using your email address, and you can register your account using this page here by entering all of the field information, all of those fields, and you can create a password and a security question. After you submit, you can use your email address and your password to create an account and submit to the Census Bureau. GUPS. GUPS requires about a disk space for installation, and it's about 3.3 gigabytes, or a RAM of 4 gigabytes. GUPS operation system, Windows, can work with Windows 7, 8, or 10. At this point, I'm going to assume that you have downloaded correctly GUPS. It is important, just before I move on into this, that you follow the step-by-step procedures to download GUPS, and try to uninstall anything that you have. If you have an older version of QGIS or an older version of program that you participated in, make sure you uninstall that and install the GUPS data or file that you downloaded or you're going to receive. Another thing that should be very useful, if you receive the DVD or a CD, or even if you download GUPS, your folder is going to look like what you see in my Window Explorer here. You just need to run the setup script here and this will walk you step by step how to download GUPS. Another resources or another valuable resources, like if you receive the data in DVD, your data is going to be, it's going to look, somehow your DVD is going to look like this, and if you receive the maps, you're going to receive the maps like this, and if you receive your data and you have your data in, you want to download the shape files for GUPS, your shape folder is going to contain your data. In this case, I shared with you a state data file, how it looks like. So inside that shape folder, you're going to see the state folder and the county folder, but in your case, it's going to be the counties if your tribe is within counties, and if it's within one county, you'll be able to see only one county. Remember, like for GUPS, and you will see when we're going to open a tribal project next, if you have this data downloaded in the DVD, from the DVD into your computer, or you're going to download the data from the DVD or a CD, you just cannot navigate to the shape folder. You don't have to go further than the shape folder in order to open a project. GUPS is smart enough to open a project and build a project for you based on like just by clicking the shape folder to select it, and it will open. I'm going to assume that we have installed GUPS correctly, so I'm going to go to all programs, going to go to QGIS 2.18, and then I'm going to click there, and I'm going to click to open QGIS 2_1815, and this will start my GUPS. Well, this is going to take a couple of minutes to open. In my example here, I'm going to select to download my data from the Census Web. The Census Web is a good resource, and I don't have to guess how I'm going to fix and what kind of folder structure I'm going to have to build in order for my GUPS to work and build a project for me. Also, I'm going to try to walk you through the steps to submit a project and export a project to submit to the census. But before I do that, let me just tell you what we see here. As I open GUPS, my map management window opens. In the map management window, I have Open Recent. The Open Recent is very useful button here. If you have if you save your project, and after you save your project, you start to work on your project and you save it, this is the best way to come back and reopen your project from Open Recent. If you want to share your project with another participant within your community or within your tribe for a verification and for a second review, you can zip the project, and when you zip the project, you will select share with another participant, and the other participant will be able to use the folder that's going to be exported from GUPS and open it. And in order for them to open it, they're going to use this button here, import a project zip file. And they will be able to see all of the files and all of the shape files that you're going to be downloading. At this point, I'm going to select a program, and in my program, I'm going to select Participant Statistical Areas program just to get us started. And as a user, I have two options. I'm not a county user today. I'm a tribal statistical. I'm going to do tribal statistical review. And for my entity, I'm going to select Reservation Trust Land, and I'm going to scroll down for my entity here, and I'm going to go down in the list, and I'm going to select my tribe here, 4290, held reservation, Levitt reservation. GUPS is smart enough again that it's going to select all of the surrounding counties or the adjacent counties to my tribal area, or the counties around containing my tribal area. We do not recommend that you select any of those adjacent counties. because it's going to take a lot of space and it's going to slow the program for you and it's going to slow everything in your computer. If you want to process this a little bit, and in the meantime, you're not going to be able to edit anything outside of your county or your tribal area. At this point, I'm not going to select any of the adjacent counties, and I'm going to select Open. And when I select Open, it's either I received a CD or a DVD with my data, or I have downloaded the data on my computer, so I'm going to use my computer. And in those two options, we said that we're going to go down to, we're going to navigate to the shape folder, and we're going to select that to open. I'm going to show you how I'm going to use the Census Web to download this and how long it's going to take. It's not going to take it's going to take a couple of minutes to download. Depends on the size of your tribal area. As you see on my screen here, most of these tools that we see displayed here is what comes with a QGIS. My GUPS tools is going to show as soon as my project is going to display. You can use any of those tools during your work with GUPS, and we're going to talk about the map management tool and this paintbrush tool to make sure that we use it if we do lots of mistakes in our project and in order for us to clean the project to re-enter the data. We're going to talk about these as soon as we open our project. So as I said, this is our standard toolbar for GUPS that comes with QGIS. At this point, the software is calculating population and housing units. It's going to take some time. But what's nice about this is like it's going to take some time in the beginning, but everything will be displayed as I need it. The symbology, the layers, all of the reference layers that I need, everything is built into this application or software that is going to make my life easy, and I don't have to guess how I'm going to do the work. As you see here, we have the layers panel or the table of contents where it displays all of the different layers that I need for my review. So my edge layer is displayed here. I can't click on anything while this is downloading because nothing is going to be active until the program finishes calculating the housing units and the population for each of the census tracts and block groups. As you see, I have the PSAP toolbar, and in the PSAP toolbar here, as it's displayed, I can use this tool. I'm not going to click on it now because it's calculating, but I'm just going to give you an overview of these. I can add a linear feature. I can delete a linear feature. I can add display a name for a linear feature. I can change an attribute for the linear feature. I can use this modify area feature tool, which we call more like the engine of the GUPS program. Most of the work that we're going to do and the edits, we're going to use the modify area feature tool to change and edit our geographies as needed. This is how I can show or hide legend. So I can click here to show or hide legend. I can use the renumbering tool to renumber my block groups. So if I do any splits or merges for my block groups within my census tracts, it is required for me to run this tool in order for me so I have to run the renumbering so I have I don't have any gaps between my block group numbers. I can use these tools, the geography review and the review change polygons, to review my changes. So if I did any changes and I would like to review them, or or somebody else is trying to review my work, they can use these tools to review the work and see exactly all of the changes that you did. And it's going to be listed, and I can show you this a little bit later on. The criteria review tool, it's going to be run before you export to share with another participant or before you export to the census. This is more like an overview of all of the checks that needs to be taken or anything that is problematic that you need to take care of. You can give a justification, you can go back and fix it. This is how we can capture any errors that your file might have before you submit to the Census Bureau. You can import a county zip or you can export to zip. This is what we're going to use to export to the Census Bureau or export to another user. If I like to print my map, I will create a PDF using this print map to file button. This tool here, or GUPS, has 3 different ways to add imagery. You can click here to use the ESRI imagery or USGS imagery, or you can connect with the internet. By clicking this tool and clicking anywhere on the map, you can, GUPS takes you to the internet and you can use Google Maps or Bing Maps to review what's happening in your area. Also, you can use layers here and add it from layer if you have imagery available for you. At this point, my project is open and I want to start working to review my tribal area. In this case, we're going to go to my Modify Area Feature tool, and as soon as that opens, I'm going to try to move it from my way so I can be able to see my map view. And as you see, I have not selected any geographies. Most of my buttons, my tool buttons here in the Modify Area Feature tool is grayed out. As soon as I start selecting a geography, they're going to start activating and different menus start displaying. These menus start displaying based on the different geographies, and it's going to show me like what kind of filters I can do for this geography or what kind of actions I can take in order for me to apply my edits to the geography. These tools here, as they are activated, this shows me what I can do to my geographies or what kind of changes I can do. Please make sure that you see that here I have the action as merge, and my button here looks like a plus sign. It's for merge. So if I change this to split, and I have 2 options to split. I can split by block group or split by faces. So if I split by either one, that button will change and they will have errors going the opposite way. So this is my split by block group option. Or I can change boundary. So I can merge, change boundary, split by block groups, or split by faces for census tracts. In the filter here, I can display above maximum and below minimum. This is the threshold that Mike was talking about during his presentation. And we always recommend that we start our work by starting with above maximum, resolving those and fixing those, and then we go and review anything that is below minimum. We do the same thing with the tribal block groups. With the tribal block groups, as you see, the filter is like almost similar. Above a maximum threshold with what population, with 600 as a below and 240 as a below, and above maximum the same thing is in here I have 3,000 or 1,200 housing units. Another thing to notice is the info table. When you select the different geographies, it's going to display in the info table each one. Like in here, I'm displaying the CDPs. It's going to display the CDP and the housing units and the population for within the CDP. The same thing is going to happen with my census tracts and block groups. It shows here that I have 3, 6, 7 census tracts, and in here it's going to display all of my block groups. When I do the filter, it's going to show me only those tracts within my filter. At this point, I'm going to start reviewing my geography, so I'm going to select census tracts, tribal census tracts, and I'm going to select the filter above maximum because we agreed that we're going to start reviewing the above maximum. And in this case, it seems like I don't have anything to edit, so I'm going to move on into the below minimum. And in the below minimum, it seems like I have 3 census tracts that have some issues. So I'm going to click in my first one. It's below minimum. So it has about 600 housing units and close to 1,100 population. My second census tract has about 515 housing units and about almost like 1,100 population. So in this case, I'm going to do the merge, to merge those two together since they are close together. So I'm going to click my targeted, and I can do this in 2 ways. So I can select this blue band, the first band in the left, as select my target. So if I click here and I click to my target, I can select it from there. Or I can go back here to above maximum, to below minimum, and select it from the info table. As you see here, as I selected it, in the bottom here of my modify area feature tool, it shows and it populates the population and housing unit. Please notice that this is going to change when I try to do the merge. So I'm going to select the second bottom here, which is the select features, and I'm going to select to merge with this block group. So now I can see that I have about 1,100 housing units and about 2,200 population, or 2,257. If I'm satisfied with that, I'm going to click the plus sign to merge those to resolve this issue. I'm going to go back to my census tracts. I'm going to select the below minimum, and I'm going to review this. And before I go any further, I didn't display the imagery, and I should have done that. So I'm going to display my imagery and add the ESRI imagery here. And I can zoom in or out a little bit more as I need to review my census tract. And because of the presentation purposes, I want to check what's happening in this area, and I'm going to click to go to the internet. So I'm going to select a point on the map. I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to go and see what's happening here. Is there a new development? So I'm going to keep it as selected here, Google Maps. I'm going to click OK. And automatically it's going to take me to that point or that area so I can review. And zoom in and out here to review my area, to see if there is anything interesting here that I like, that I can learn from this area or research. I'm going to go back to my GUPS, because as a local participant, you know your area a lot better than me. So in this case, I'm going to justify this. I'm going to say that I'm okay with this because I have a housing unit, I have 703 housing units, or because of any other justification. So I don't do any splits or any other merges, and this way I will maintain my historical census tract boundary the way it is. In order for me to do that, I can go to change attribute here, this change attribute button. And I have different options here. What I need to use at this case, because we said I'm satisfied and this is within a threshold, and I'm going to provide just a justification to the Census Bureau, plus my population is not like too much off. It's about almost close to 1,200. So I'm just going to say here, other, and I'm going to say housing units is within threshold. It depends on the case. You might provide any other justification as fits for your situation. You have up to 150 characters here. Please make good use of those if you have to. can say OK and OK, and that will resolve my census tract issue. I'm going to go to my block groups, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to select above maximum, and it seems like I don't have any in my view here. I'm going to go to my below, and I'm going to select the first one from the info list to zoom into it. And in this case, I'm gonna, since it's below minimum, I have to merge it. So, but before I do that, I'm gonna review a little bit further what's happening in my area. So my second census tract here is below as well. So I'm going to do a merge, and in order for me to do a merge, I'm going to select this one as my target, for example. I'm going to select this here to select my under threshold census tract, block group. And just by one click, it will select everything. I just need to be patient when I do this. And I'm going to click the plus sign or the merge. And this will solve that under threshold block group. So all of what I'm trying to present here is that using these tools, you don't have to guess, and there is not too much too many things to challenging things. The software is built in and the tools are built in to walk me through step by step so I can fix and provide the changes that I need to provide, or provide the justifications that I need to provide to the Census Bureau and complete my PSAP program. In this case, I will do the same thing as I did before. It's like I have 400, but let's say that I have a real good reason to maintain this block group and maintain the boundary here. I'm just going to say I'm going to do a change attribute here, but instead of a change attribute, I just want to give a justification to maintain this as it is, if I have a good reason to maintain it as it is. In this case, again, it might have seasonal population in this area. I'm going to say other, and I'm going to add seasonal population, for example. And I'm going to say OK. And OK. This should satisfy everything. Since I did some changes, and if you remember we talked about the renumbering tool, I'm going to make sure that I save all of the work that I did, and please make sure that you save your work as you're going step by step if you are happy with the work that you did. So since I did all of that and I saved my changes, I'm going to go back here and just select my CDPs, and I'm going to select my census tracts just for a last overview. I have nothing here, and the below is, although it shows here that it's below, but I gave this a justification earlier. I'm going to go to the tribal block groups, and I'm going to do the same thing, the above and the below, and I know that I provided justification here. If I didn't provide justification here, when I run the criteria review, this will be code there, and this is where I'm going to provide my my justifications. So at this point, I'm satisfied with all of the changes, so I'm going to run the renumbering for block groups. It's going to take a couple of minutes. Please don't let this bother you, because it will do the action, so I'm going to click OK. It's just a small error that happens sometimes, and we are working on cleaning that from the software. So in here, it completed, and the renumbering is complete, so I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to save. OK. Now it's a good time, before I go to the criteria review, I just want you to see how you will be able to use the review change polygon tool. And if I go here for tribal census tracts, it will show you the different changes that I have done here and tell you what kind of work that I have done. So you can double click here and you can zoom to those different areas where changes happen. And you can review your work based on the changes that you did, or the verifier of your work. If you have somebody who's going to verify and review your work, this is the best way for them to locate all of the changes that you did to this file. At this point, before I do any other changes, I'm going to close this window. And at this time, I'm going to say that I don't have any CDP changes, so I'm going to just run my criteria review tool. And it tells me that all features pass criteria review. If this didn't happen, the software is going to create a list with the errors, and I have to go and review, similar to what we just saw earlier, a window that is going to display the errors, and I just have to click on them and walk through them one by one and solve them or justify them. So in this case, I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to assume that I am ready to export to the Census Bureau. So I'm going to export this file using this export to zip. And here is what you see. You have two options. You can export to the census, or you can share with another participant. I'm going to export to the census. But when I'm going to export to the census is going to get a package only with a zipped folder with only the change files. If I'm sharing with another participant, we said this earlier, we're going to share all of the shape files, and we're going to be able, the second participant is going to be able to share all and see all of the shape files. So it's going to be like a whole project. But if I'm exporting the census, I'm going to be limited to the number and the size of the file. So I'm going to, GUPS is smart enough to export only the change file that is required. So at this point, I'm going to say export to the census. And I'm going to say OK. And here, I'm going to call this test 1 because I'm just testing, and I do want to mix this with a different county. You can, this is where you enter your information as a participant. You're going to add and fill up all of these required fields, especially anything where the red asterisk is required. So I'm going to call this test 1 census. And this way, it will be easy to identify. When I click OK, GUPS is going to take a second to I'm going to say OK. It's going to take a second here, and it's going to zip a file for me, and it's going to give me the link for that file. So I'm going to say OK, and if I say yes here, it's going to open a window explorer for the location where that file is, and this will make it easy for me so I can submit it through SWIM. So I'm going to just move this to the side, and I'm going to move into my internet, and I'm going to go to my SWIM. And in here, I'm just going to use my account, the way that we said that this is going to use my email address. And I'm going to use the password that I created for the SWIM. And I'm going to log in. If you're responsible for multiple counties or multiple tribes, and hopefully that most of you is responsible for only your tribe, so you're going to be able to submit only one. But if it's somebody else who's doing the work for you, they might have multiple submissions in their SWIM account. I'm going to start a new upload, and in here I'm participating in the Participant Statistical Area Program, so I'm going to select PSAP, going to say next. I'm doing a tribal, say next, and I'm going to select my tribe. And my tribe reservation, and I'm going to click next. In here, I'm going to add a file, and I'm going to navigate to the folder where my tribal data is located. So it's in my GUPS data, and in here I have this TSR 20, and I'm going to go to the output file folder, and I'm going to select the file that I just exported here. And I'm going to click Open. If I have any comments, I will add them in the comments here section. And while my folder is uploading here, as you see, my buttons here are grayed out. So it takes a minute to upload my file, and I can see the message uploading here. That means that it's working. So let's give it a second. Tribal files, it seems like sometimes they are larger than even county file. They can be because you have multiple counties sometimes, so this needs a little bit more patience. And it all depends in your connection and how good of an internet connection you have. The faster it's going to go. So as soon as this is done, my next button will be active here. I'm going to click next, and it's going to provide me with a message, thank you message, that my file have been submitted to the Census Bureau. It just seems because of the location where I am today, it seems like my internet connection might be a little bit weak. But before we waste too much time, and so I can complete this presentation, we're going to try to come back to this section here again. I'm going to go and try to do some other changes just so we can cover some of the CDP work that can be done. So if I have a CDP work that I need to work on, and I need to edit a CDP, I can do that by, for example, I can click here in my area. I will make sure that I have any of the necessary layers that I need to review. If I need places to be active here, can have that active. So I can see where the places and compared to the CDPs. I'm going to navigate to an area where I think that I need to do some edits for a CDP. So let's say that my CDP here I'm not sure. This is just for our exercise. I'm going to click here to select one. And I'm going to try to change a boundary, thinking that this boundary here is more visible. And if that's exactly what I want, if I use the select feature, I'm going to use change boundary here. I'm going to select feature, and I'm going to try to select here. Can I select this large area? And that's not what I want. In this case, I'm going to say deselect features. I'm going to zoom a little bit more in because it seems like this is some kind of power line that's going around. So if that's what is happening there and I want to add this area into my CDP, and because I want you to see how to add a linear feature, I'm going to add a linear feature by clicking the Add Linear Feature. And I'm going to select my starting point, and I'm going to go and follow my starting point. And I'm going to click my right button of my mouse to finish. And this is going to tell me that I finished, so it's going to ask me for what type of linear feature or edge is this. So I'm going to say it's a borderline. And if I have a name or it's required the name, I will add the name of my linear feature in here. So I'm going to say OK. And I'm going to go ahead and change my boundary. There is another thing before I change my boundary that it's important. If you look here, this is undo and the redo button. In order for you, in any of the actions with any of the geographies, regardless to which layer you're working with, the edges, the census tracts, the tribal tracts, or the tribal blood groups, or the CDPs, all of what you need to do is to select the layer. And in here, if I click here, it's going to say, I can say undo, and it's going to delete the linear feature that I just added. You can do that, use the undo button as long as you didn't save. If I click save for the linear feature or for any of the other layers, I cannot go back and do the undo. I just have to go back and delete. In this case, I'm going to go and click save because I want that. And I'm going to say OK. So after that is saved, I'm going to select features, and I'm going to select the face or the face is the area that I want to add. And here it took a second to select. I'm going to zoom a little bit more because it seems like I left a small face here in the bottom. I'm going to hold the control key, and I'm going to select that face as well to make sure I don't have gaps. And I'm going to click Add. And this will change my boundary. The other option I have here, I can add a new district. If I have an area to add a new CDP, this is how I add a new district. But in this case, I have to select the area. So if I want to select this area here, but I have to follow the criteria that Mike mentioned about the area and the characteristics of that area. If there is a zip code with that name, it doesn't have to intersect with another CDP or to be within a place. So for just testing and for what we're doing now, I'm going to assume that this area is okay for a new CDP, and I can do that by adding a feature in this area, and I'm going to call this test 1 as I called the project. But in your case, you will have a more used name for that area. So I'm going to click OK. And this is how I create a new CDP. At this point, I'm going to conclude my presentation and return Mike to complete the presentation so we can open it for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed, for the wonderful technical demonstration. If you just give us a moment, we'll get the slides back up on the screen. All right, thank you, Mohammed. This section describes 4 supplemental sources to consider while performing PSAP review: Tiger Web, American Indian Areas Layer, Area Landmark and Point Landmark Layers, and Parcel Boundaries. Not all these sources may be available or applicable to each participant's universe of counties. The Census Bureau's Tiger Web online map viewer, located at tigerweb.go.census.gov/tigerweb, allows participants to view the Census Bureau's 2010 Census Geographies layer outside of the GUPS environment. Tiger Web allows viewing at street-level detail, features such as roads, waterways, and county, place, city, CDPs, census tracts, block groups, and other boundaries, as well as satellite imagery. Participants find this additional tool beneficial to visualize the 2010 census tracts and tribal block groups for comparison to their 2020 proposed plan in order to verify the changes or determine if there is a need to make additional changes. Because it resides outside of the GUPS, participants can open Tiger Web in a separate window or on a second dual monitor for a side-by-side comparison. The American Indian Areas layer within GUPS provides a supplemental reference source for understanding what entities cause tracts to code in the 94XX range and can serve as a very strong legal feature for establishing and correcting tribal tract and tribal block group boundaries. Please note that standard census tracts and block groups within American Indian areas are different geographies compared to tribal census tracts and tribal block groups. The 94XX code series is reserved for standard census tracts that are delineated either within or primarily to cover an American Indian reservation or off-reservation trust lands, while also adhering to the standard census tract criteria. Some areas of the country, primarily in the Southwest, have counties with the majority of tracts coded to the 94XX range. Major changes to reservation areas happen infrequently, so the Census Bureau does not anticipate that PSAP will produce any new 94XX coded tracts. As a tool for determining whether a census tract or block group could be a special land use area, it can sometimes be helpful to activate the area landmark or point landmark layers within GUPS. This layer is an additional reference source for use during statistical geography delineation. In some situations, non-visible legal linear features can be preferred as boundaries for census tracts and block groups. At the smallest scale, participants can use parcel boundaries for reference to developments or contiguous personal plots if no other solution for splitting an area is present. Parcel boundaries are particularly useful when working with census tracts that contain neighborhoods characterized by cul-de-sacs that form dangling edges in the database, meaning that there is frequently not a closed circuit of visible features available to connect all of the housing units associated with the development. Lastly, the PSAP website is a one-stop shop for everything PSAP related. The PSAP website can be used to download GUPS, download the respondent guides, access the proposed change file, view webinar schedules, and basically everything else you need to know about PSAP. The Census Bureau provides assistance by answering questions, clarifying criteria, guidelines, and procedures, and providing information concerning specific situations that participants encounter when reviewing, delineating, and submitting their statistical area plans. For questions concerning technical problems with the GUPS application or specific programmatic questions, support is available by telephone at 844-788-4921. Once again, that's 844-788-4921, and by email at geo.psap@census.gov. For those interested in social media and other ways to stay informed, this slide depicts various methods to connect with the Census Bureau through alerts, memorandums, notifications, through Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest, and Instagram.